kidnapped and murdered, and to this day, nobody knows who done it. Hello, true crimeers. This is the case of Alice Paré. Viewer discretion is advised. At the time this case occurred, Alice Paré was just 14 years old, and she and her family lived in Drummondville, which is in Quebec, Canada. Alice was learning to play the flute, and she took classes from a teacher outside of school. I believe this is the building where her classes were held. They were roughly a mile away from her home. It was February 17th, 1971. Alice's father would drop her off for her lessons, and then he drove away. Alice walks up to the door and she pulls it, but it's not opening. So normally on time, Alice and her dad were about 10 minutes late. And so the teacher was not really waiting around, and so the teacher just got up and left when the student hadn't shown up. Alice sees one of her friends down the road and she goes up to talk to them. Alice borrows 10 cents from the friend, and that 10 cents was to walk across the street to the payphone and call her home. And she put the dime in and she tried to dial the house, but it turns out the phone was not working properly, the one she was using. So she never got a hold of her parents or her mom. Alice then tells her friend, "I'm just going to walk home then. It's only a mile away. I can do it." Alice never got home. So later that evening, the parents go back to where the lessons were being held because they didn't know that Alice hadn't done her lessons that day. And so when they arrived, that's when they found out that Alice had been late, so the teacher had left. Now the parents kind of drive around looking for her. And within that same evening, they report her missing. It would be 68 days later when they finally found Alice. A couple of workers were doing some work near a bunch of trees. And when they looked over to a certain area, they thought they saw a pair of white shoes sticking out from behind a tree. And so when they go to approach it, they realize that this is not just shoes. This is a human body. It was the body of a young girl. So they immediately contact police. Police arrive and confirm that this is the deceased body of a little girl. The body was roughly 60 feet from the gravel road, and she was still dressed in the same school uniform she was last seen wearing when she was dropped off at the class. Her red coat and green jacket were taken off of her and placed neatly in a pile next to her. The body would soon be identified as that of 14-year-old Alice Paré. She had been strangled to death. There were no signs of a sexual assault. The flute that Alice had been carrying that day was not found anywhere near her body. So she was found on the afternoon of April 26, 1971. Once police put this information out there, they also made mention that her flute was missing, and they would get a tip from a young boy. This young boy calls police and says that one day I was out there collecting glass bottles for recycling when I came across a flute. I found it in a ditch off Route 20. And that was on April 24th, just a couple of days before the body was found. The flute, where he said it was roughly a 10-minute drive from where Alice was found. He tells police, "I didn't take it, so it should still be there unless someone else took it." Lo and behold, police go to that exact location, and they find it. It's still there. Now again, this is 1971, so the forensic technology that we have now wasn't even close to being a thing back then. So DNA and stuff like that, they wouldn't even have thought to collect anything along those lines. To my knowledge, though, they still have all of the evidence. I do not know if they have retested anything recently. But the murder of Alice Paré has gone unsolved ever since. Alice was a very model student. She was a shy kid, and people weren't really sure if Alice would willingly go with someone that she didn't know. And so it kind of begs the question, did she willingly get into someone's vehicle maybe, or did someone snatch her up off the street? One witness would come forward to state that they think they saw someone who looked like Alice getting into a car, not being forced in, but just getting into it. The car was described as a black-colored 1970 two-door Chevrolet. To my knowledge, police have investigated every tip, every lead, have interviewed and questioned over 150 people. They had searched several locations near where the body was found. They searched locations near where she likely would have been taken. They interviewed people in that area, but they got nowhere at all. This was 54 years ago. And so her killer is likely at least in their 70s, if not their 80s. There's a good chance they're no longer here, but there is also a chance that they are still here. And if they are, and you know something about this case that could put the killer behind bars, you should come forward now. Even if that person's only in prison for 5-10 years, make sure they spend the rest of their life in a prison cell. Surely someone somewhere out there knows the truth, and perhaps that someone is you. If you have any information about the murder of Alice Paré, please call, and this is obviously a Canadian number, 819-200-4628. Please help Alice and her remaining family get the justice she rightfully deserves.